So let's get into why charter schools make good sense. Here's the first example. Now, when I was a little kid and my mom said, "Bobby, time to go to the post office." Some of you guys look about my age. I'm 53. So when I went to the post office when I was 8, 9, 10, my mom would say, or tell us to get in a car and go to the post office. We would whine and cry and complain, and the reason was because that was a minimum 1 hour exercise. You'd go to the post office, they got the little turnstile things going back and forth, and it was always hot, and there was one person up in front, and she didn't like her job. You could just tell, and so you'd finally get up there, and next, one of those kinds of things at the post office. You'd get up to ask them what they want. It would take forever to get that done, pay too much for it, and then and that's the way the post office was. And then our mailbox in my neighborhood was at the end of the driveway. This is maybe a positive social activity that used to take place. It doesn't anymore. But and that was when the mail letter carrier would come by in the truck and put all our mail in. All the moms would kind of wait till the truck was out of the neighborhood so we could all get to the mailbox at the same time, all the moms. And the reason this was important was because you'd open your mailbox and you'd get the mail out, and then Mrs. Mazurkowicz's mail's there, and you got to go to Mrs. Ream's mail, get that letter to her, and and our mail's in somebody else's mailbox, and so all the moms would get together to exchange mail to get it to the right household, and that was just the way it is, and it didn't matter. There's not like you could choose another mail company or letter carrier, or they had a monopoly on the system back in those days. Next button, please. But what has happened since? Of course, now we've got all these other ways to deliver. Get our packages delivered, get our mail delivered. Of course, the big game changer is instantaneous electronic mail. Bottom line is, you all know the story now. When you go to the post office today, you're in and out of there in 5 minutes. The price is actually pretty good, and it is an amazing thing. You can put a stamp on a letter, put it in the mailbox today, send it across the country. It'll get there in about 2 days, and it'll show up in the right place. It's really phenomenal. And when I tell kids how it used to be, they can't understand why, and they don't really believe it. But I don't know, some of you people were there. You were with me, right? That's the way the Postal Service used to be. Well, now it's efficient because they have to be in order to stay in business. Next slide. Charter schools work much the same way. Anybody know who that guy is? Milton Friedman, absolutely. So Milton Friedman gives my school $1,000 a year to hold a party on his birthday, July 31st. He was 103 this year. He died 10, 15 years ago, I guess. But from the grave, he put his fortunes aside in the Milton Friedman Foundation for educational choice, and they support charter schools, vouchers, school choice initiatives, and if you apply to hold an event and talk about school choice and market principles on July 31st, you can get $1,000, and so we held ours this year. So Milton Friedman came to town. I was in the audience one year when he was talking about this matrix. Next slide. So this is the cost-quality matrix. This applies to everything in government. And first box, let me zip through this. You all know the principles, but it's nice to visualize it. Here's how this works. If I spend my money on you following me? If I spend my money on you, I care about the cost more than I care about the quality. With me on this? This is the thumb. I explain this to the kids at school. It's the big thumb principle. When you go to buy gym shoes and you get your mom to finally break down and go buy the shoes for you, you go to the store and you find the shoes that fit and they look great. Not good. Those aren't the ones that are going home. Instead, you get a size up, and your mom does this to make sure it's really too big for your feet because she's spending her money on you, and So if there's a scenario where I got to spend my money on you, I care more about the cost, as the mom does. I do the big thumb test because I don't want to spend too much money on the shoes. You'll grow into them eventually. You'll grow into them fast. So it doesn't matter that they don't fit well. It doesn't matter that you get a few blisters, right? Spending my money on you. I care more about the cost than I do about the quality. Next box, look at that, is that's when there's a scenario when you've got to spend your money on me. And in that circumstance, you care more about the quality. I'm sorry, you care less about the quality, and you care more about the cost. If you're spending your money on me, I want you to buy a nice coat for me. You don't care whether it's nice. You just want to spend as little as you can. So that's what we get in that box. This next box down here is a scenario where you have to where somebody else gets to spend your money on you. You're allowing somebody else to spend your money on you. There's no incentive to care about either the cost or the quality, right? No incentive at all. And so what have I or Dr. Friedman, what have we just described? This is the reason they had no curriculum at the elementary school where I wanted to send my daughters. This is why it was okay for them to send me teachers who were not competent enough to teach well, because they were spending my money on me. They don't have an incentive to care about either the cost or the quality. They just have jobs to do. It doesn't make people malicious. It doesn't make people stupid. It doesn't make people evil or anything along those lines. It just makes sense, right? If you're spending somebody else's money on them, you have no motivation to really care about the cost or the quality. You've just got deadlines to meet, reports to fill out, money to move, and you just get your job done, collect your paycheck, and go home. That's a problem with a system. And it's not just education I've described. I've probably described everything else that drives you nuts in the business world. This is why your licensing and regulatory offices run the way that they do, and health insurance and any government program. You're allowing other people to spend your money on you. And the best of all worlds is that next box, where you get to spend. Where you get to spend your money on you. That's the only circumstance under which you care about both the cost and the quality. Now, charter schools does not get us into that box, but it's a giant step in that direction. When our parents leave and our parents decide that they don't want to be at our school, the money leaves with that child as well. And so, we need to have parents at the school who enjoy who like what we're teaching, who agree with the philosophy and the academic mission of the school. Next slide, please. So wherever we can, we've got to try to apply that philosophy. Here's a good example of what happens when you let other people spend your money on you. And that is this chart. This is the process in Colorado that it takes to remove a bad teacher from a public school. Okay? This is not a joke. When I first saw this, I didn't produce this. This is produced by a group called Common Good. I think they're out of New York. They produce one of these for every state. And so I saw this. And I saw these little Colorado flags, and I went and looked closer at it. And I recognized these laws. I was in the legislature when some of these things passed. And so this is to get rid of a teacher who is just a bad teacher. Let me assure you, if you're a teacher, because I don't want to scare anybody unnecessarily about safety. If you're a teacher who molests a child, I mean, the thing we were pulling licenses away from kids at the state board all the time is the teacher who's sending texts to a 14-year-old girl saying, let's meet up for coffee. We can get rid of those people quick, okay? I'm just talking about somebody who's a bad teacher. This is the process you've got to go through to remove a bad teacher in Colorado. They have rights. They have due process rights. They've got, they don't call it tenure anymore, but it's still tenure. And this takes about 3 years, costs minimum $1 million. So what school districts do is like what DPS does. Down in their main headquarters, they've got a floor in their main headquarters, and up there on the 3rd or 4th floor, they've just got a suite of offices, and it's called the rubber room. Every major city has a rubber room for their school district. This is where teachers go, excess capacity teachers. Costs more to go through this than it does to just leave them on the payroll for 3 or 4 or 5 more years till they retire, and you just put them in a rubber room where they can't touch the kids. Okay? And maybe you give them a job. You maybe ask them to research something or read some books, or you just give them, but in most of these rubber rooms, they get a desk, they get a computer terminal, they get a phone, and they get a paycheck. And then they go home at the end of the day and pretend they have worked. And what they're doing is saving the district money by avoiding this process. As a charter school, this is a luxury I have, and it breaks my heart when I meet with my fellow principal friends at the other schools, and we talk about, principal talk about headaches with what it's like to get rid of a non-performing teacher. They are frustrated because they've got to deal with this. Schaffer, how's it work over at your charter school? I'm like, well, first of all, we don't make too many mistakes at my school, but when we do, we don't make them long. And for me, it's about 2 steps, and it can take me a day. Okay, now that doesn't. Whenever I say that, potential teachers who hear that or new teachers at the school are horrified because it sounds like we fire teachers left and right. We don't. I'm a good principal, and part of my evaluation is whether I'm making good choices and whether I'm providing good management. And so in my 6 years as principal, the couple times that I've had to let a teacher go, it was not a surprise. We did everything we could to manage that teacher to better performance, and by the time the hard conversation came around, no surprises. Both teachers said, yeah, I kind of saw that coming, and I'm sorry we let you down. But if I got a problem and I need to fix it tomorrow, I can fix it tomorrow. I do not have to deal with this in a charter school, and neither does any charter school principal in the state of Colorado. So we're getting, there's a good visual answer of why when I get to spend my money on me, meaning a parent, that I care about the cost, I care about the quality, and I dispense with all of this nonsense. We hire our teachers on a professional basis. We don't have a union contract. Every public school, regular public school where you have a union negotiation for a union contract, here's what you effectively have. You've probably never thought of it this way, but think of it now. Every district that has a collective bargaining agreement with their district, by that agreement, pays the worst teacher in their district the same as the best teacher in the district. And ask yourself, if you were forced to do that in your place of employment, whether you'd be able to manage people to success under those circumstances. That's not a joke. The only thing that matters on that pay scale is how long you've been a teacher and how many hours of continuing education, whether you got a master's degree, PhD, how many hours of continuing education you might have, sometimes whether you're a department chair. But just take two science teachers, a good science teacher and a bad science teacher down the hall. One's putting in the extra hours, the extra effort, helping kids at night with homework, making their cell phone available to the parents so the kids can call at any hour of the night, maintaining their website so that you can get your questions answered. And then down the hall is somebody who's a clock watcher and leaves as soon as the bell rings. That principal is forced by law in Colorado to pay both those teachers the same, on the same wage scale, and it's a crime. It absolutely is. Here's the other. I'm going to run out of time if I don't hurry up. Disruptive students. There's an extra panel on disruptive students. This is what you have to go through to remove a kid who's just a disruptive student in a school. So nobody does this in Colorado. Disruptive student, say it's in the 4th grade, you only have a 2-year problem. You wait till he's in the 6th, leaves the 6th grade, and then he goes to a junior high school and he's somebody else's issue. And then that junior high school principal, he's only got a 2, maybe a 3-year problem. So you just manage that kid, try to contain him best you can until it's time to go on to high school, and then he's somebody else's issue and somebody else's problem. And then that kid gets into high school, they only got to deal with them for 4 years maybe. If they can persuade him to drop out, which happens a lot, then it's only a 2-year problem. That kid's out on the street, and then he's our problem. Okay? And unfortunately, that's what happens. There's no motivation. There's no incentive in regular public schools to love and care for that kid. There really isn't. For me, I don't want to lose him. All right? I really don't want to lose him. I want to give him and his family as much guidance and support as I possibly can because I want him to stay in my school. I fight for those kids. I really do. And I watch them. Sometimes they do leave because the academics is hard. Sometimes they go to other schools. And it's a tragedy what happens over there. Nobody pays attention to them. Nobody cares about them. It doesn't matter to one high school principal down the street whether that kid succeeds or leaves. It just doesn't matter. And I've got some great success stories of kids who either have had disabilities or come from just hardship families who have a diploma. They've gone to college. They're doing quite well. They would not have succeeded if they'd have gone anywhere else. I tell you what. That makes you pretty excited to go to work in the morning and be a part of an organization like that. All right, next slide. All right, this is what I'm afraid of here. All right, these are the answers. We got to create marketplaces in education wherever possible. We got to treat parents like real customers. We got to treat educators like real professionals and demand agreement on the universal truth. Next slide. This is the universal truth we have committed to memory, and you should too. It is the right and responsibility of parents to direct the education and upbringing of their children. Everybody says they can agree with this, but in reality, in public school land, hardly anybody believes this, right? We tell our parents that you have to understand this, you have to agree with this, and same with that our relationship with the faculty and staff and a parent is this. It is your responsibility to educate your child. You hire us to assist you. If you have any belief that you can just drop your child off at a school and somehow they're going to come home at the end of the day or the end of the week or the end of the month or the end of the year smarter, then these are unrealistic expectations. I cannot help you if that's what your hope is for. And so some parents do. We have some parents who are not engaged in their child's education, and they send them, and the kids do pretty well at the school. It's better, but you have to have. This is not a responsibility that you can hand off to somebody else.